Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print 3D channel. Today is September 8th, and that means day 251 of the 3DP 365 project. And on today's episode, we wrap up the troubleshooting of the gMax 1.5 XT Plus, and we now have band-free printing, so stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back, and thank you for joining me here for day 251 of the 3DP 365 project. We've wrapped up all the troubleshooting and tuning of our gMax 1.5 XT Plus, and I'm ready to show you guys the results. The first thing we printed was the XYZ Calibration Cube, and that turned out perfect. There is a little bit of elephant footing on the bottom because my first layer is set for 110% width and height, so that's going to give us a little bit of extra plastic. And while it was printing the first layer, I did dial down the baby step Z just probably a little bit too much because I wanted to make sure I had a really good bed adhesion. And I do that a lot on some of my prints. You'll see the little bit of elephant footing on some objects, but it's minimal, and you know what, it's very negligible, and I'm not going to reprint it or reset my settings for it. I just wanted to print out the XYZ Calibration Cube just to make sure everything in X, Y, and Z was perfectly dialed in. And as far as the print goes, it's perfect. All the letters are nice and crisp and clean. The surface finish is really, really good. There's no problems whatsoever. I don't see any kind of fuzziness on the layer change from all the layer changing from this little object because I have my it's just my basic simplified 3D settings. It's actually the exact same settings that I used for the Cheeky Monkey. The only difference is I dialed up the infill to I think 15 or 20% just to make sure I had a nice solid cube. I wanted to check my infill too to make sure it was printing properly too. So setting it at a high amount, you really get to see what's going on inside the cube as it's printing. But other than that, it is a perfect print. And I have my digital calipers here, and I'll go ahead and turn those on and I'll zero them out with it fully pressed in. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but we are zeroed out and this is perfectly set up so we can go ahead and take a measurement and see how well the printer did. Now I haven't checked this yet, so I don't know. So we'll start with Z, and I'm rolling that all the way forward, and we have 20.01. That's pretty good. Let's check out the Y. 19.97. So, whoop, 98, 97. Hold on, let me roll it all the way in there. Make sure it's all the way in. Oh, 19.99. So that's pretty good. So 20 by 20, you know, we're doing pretty good. We're not exactly 20 by 20. So we did Z and X. Let's check out Y. Y is, again, 19.99. So actually, yeah, 19.99. So that's pretty good. I think the printer is actually pretty dialed in. I would expect to see a perfectly 20mm cube off of the gMax 1.5 XT Plus, but I'm pretty happy with 19.99. So the next thing I did was to queue up the Cheeky Monkey. And I have to be honest, I did go back into Simplify 3D and I generated some new G code. And the only reason why I wanted to do that is I wanted to turn my temperatures down a little bit, and I did want to add a little bit more infill because on the original Cheeky Monkey print, which I have here, the one with all the banding, I noticed that the top layers on the little base weren't fully connecting to the model. So I added a little bit more infill so it had a little bit better support structure underneath those top layers. But that's the only change I made, and I did generate obviously some new G code. So if there was something going on with the G code, that pretty much eliminated that because I have restarted my Mac and restarted Simplify 3D actually twice since we printed the original Cheeky Monkey print. But this print turned out 100% perfect. The only problem again, okay, 99.9% perfect. We still have a little issue with the arms, but I did cool my PLA down a full 5 degrees. My original temperature for printing Matter Hacker's Pro Series PLA was 209, and now we're down to 198. So almost, 11 degree temperature change since my original print. And that's the original Cheeky Monkey was printed at 209, and now this one's printed at 198. I did use 202 for the first 2 layers just to make sure they were nice and sticky and they stuck to the print bed really well. And it did take a little effort to get it off the print bed. I didn't ruin it in any way, it just popped off with a little bit of effort. But the print itself, I think it's perfect. It's got there's really no problems at all. I mean, this is a very, very clean print from a very, very detailed model. And again, I'll put the link to this model down in the description, along with the XYZ Calibration Cube, which you guys can print out. I do have to say one thing. I thought that the letters would be centered on here, but they're not really centered on the actual model, and I thought something was wrong with my printer. But then I took a look at the actual model, and the only one that's actually centered is the Z. The X and the Y aren't quite centered on the cube, so if you print this, don't panic. It's not your printer, it's the model. But anyway, I'll put the link in the description so you guys can print this yourself. It's a pretty popular model. I'm sure you've printed a few of them already if you have a 3D printer. But back to the cheeky monkey print in the Blond Matter Hackers Pro Series PLA. Now I know a lot of people have been leaving comments and saying that filament would never be a factor. But I want to read you the email that I got from gCreate, if I can get my phone to unlock. Oop, there we go. And I want to read you guys the email that I got from gCreate as far as doing the troubleshooting goes. And I want you guys to hear exactly what the tech said, someone who works on printers all the time and has seen these kind of issues before. Now, I'm not saying you guys are wrong in any way, so don't think I'm bashing anybody in any way. I'm just going by what the manufacturer of the printer suggested that I do. Besides tightening all the wheels on the gMax and checking all the things, the very last thing that the tech told me said filament can be a cause of banding. Verbatim. Sometimes the diameter varies sometimes the filament varies in diameter and can cause banding. Or if the spool is not spinning freely, which our spool was freely spinning, try a different brand of filament to see if the banding continues. And that's one of the troubleshooting steps that we did. We actually switched from Matter Hackers Pro Blond to their silver, which is made by two different manufacturers. And I can tell that it is made by two manufacturers because the actual spool itself is a different design. So that means we did switch manufacturers of filament. Now I understand that everybody is telling me that filament will not be a factor, but I got information from my printer manufacturer saying that it could be. And I wanted to rule out all factors. When you're doing troubleshooting, if you don't rule out all factors, you're setting yourself up for failure in the later days. So to rule out the filament was an important step of this troubleshooting. And we did. Basically right away we did. The silver filament printed out perfectly. So I knew the blonde filament would actually print out perfectly too. I had no worries that the filament was going to be the problem. My gMax needed some maintenance. But again, you have to rule out filament in your troubleshooting or you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So back to the blonde print of the cheeky monkey. This is perfect. I am really happy with this. There are no blobs, there are no globs, there are no layer skips, there's no sign of banding. There's only a little bit of issue still with my cooling and my PLA. But these angles were pretty extreme, and I think most people would probably throw support down on those arms. But I wanted to print this support-free because I've seen a lot of models come out of other printers very similar to this without support, and they were pretty clean. So I think this is quite an improvement, and I'll show you the previous cheeky monkey. I gotta make sure I have the right one with all the banding because it's hard to tell on the right angles, you really can't see it. So here's the previous arms, and you can see that the PLA is very mushy over there. And now here's the new version. And the PLA is still a little mushy, but it's not nearly as bad. So I think I've dialed down my temperatures pretty good. And I'll probably drop it down a couple more degrees until I get it perfect. But I'm not gonna keep printing the cheeky monkey model. We are done with this model because I believe that the gMax is perfectly tuned in now. The XYZ Cube came out pretty perfect. I'm very happy with the results on that. And of course, the blonde filament printed out our cheeky monkey model, and I think it looks amazing. So I think we're done with this little 3-day episode of trying to get the gMax back into 110% printing awesome. And I'm really happy with the print, so we're gonna move on to some new models, and we're gonna do some new stuff over the next couple of weeks, because the reason why I wanted to print this is I wanna print more models without support by dialing in my printer settings and getting my prints better. A lot of times I use a lot of support material because I'm kind of still a noob at this, and I just, you know what, I need support material. I don't think my printer can handle it, but I've actually seen other printers handle it without support. So this was kind of a test to see if I can get the gMax dialed in to a point where we really don't need to use support, and we're pretty close. And like I said, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to print more models without support material that have a lot more detail, and the models that I do print with support material that have a ton of detail, I want to make sure they come out perfect. And now I think my gMax is dialed in 110% awesome. Well, that about wraps it up for day 251 of the 3DP 365 project. I hope you guys found this episode interesting and informative, and I hope you gathered some information on tuning and troubleshooting your own printers so you don't make the same mistakes I do and keep printing while your printer is still not operating properly. If you're looking for ways to support the channel, check out those Matter Hackers, GearBest, and affiliate links down in the description. If you purchase anything through those links, it kicks a little bit back to the channel, and it doesn't cost you a penny, and I really appreciate it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share those videos, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.